The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 13, Episode 15, Flappers of Fury. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad to have you here today. We are going to be talking about this last episode of Season 13 for the Housewives of New Jersey, and it turned out to be quite a confrontation. Let's get into it. We find out that Melissa has been keeping a secret for the last 6 months. She wanted things to stay quiet. She says that she was doing it for Teresa in order for Teresa to have that moment, that bubble, the bubble of love that she has now with Louie Realis. And Melissa tells us this happened 6 months ago when Melissa, she says that it was actually Teresa who called her brother and had him over to their house, to Teresa's house, and that she and Louie, her husband, told Joe that Melissa, the rumor that Melissa had been seen in a car, but not only that, much worse than that actually there was multiple times that it was more than one man that she had been cheating with. And this is what Melissa tells us, that she knew this 6 months ago. Teresa says that she didn't want to say anything because she was afraid. Teresa was afraid that they were going to ruin her marriage, the wedding, whatever it is. And so she also kept quiet. This happened not in front of the cameras. From what I understand, this happened in private, and there is no footage of Teresa and Louie with Joe talking about this confrontation, talking about what they heard about Melissa. There is no footage of it. And so this is 6 months ago. And Teresa says again that she kept quiet because she didn't want them to ruin her marriage, her wedding. Now, the setting for this episode is over at Paul Connell's house, and this is Dolores's boyfriend, Paulie. Everyone shows up in their costumes. It's supposed to be the flapper era, and they have their hair done. The men are dressed up as well with their hats. And so this is the setting in that gorgeous, modern, luxurious home of Paul's. And so they're all there. They arrive. Teresa and Louie arrive late, it seems, and it's not clear whether that was on purpose, if they had some trepidation as to what was going to happen. They were trying to avoid maybe some rumors going around, some talk that they might have overheard, and things got really, really bad. And so the whole thing starts off, we get to see the Irish dancers, the girls dancing, stomping away outside, and the two of them are gorgeous together, a lovely couple. And from what we find out later, both Dolores and Paul together are going to look for a home that they will share together. That we find out as well. Now, from here, the guests start to arrive, and very quickly, things become quite hectic. Margaret arrives in a very pretty pink dress, sparkly, with some feathers at the wrist, and a sparkly silver head wrap, which is very pretty. She looks gorgeous. Joe alongside, and he's dressed also with the same era clothing. Dolores also in pink. She looks beautiful. Then Melissa and Joe arrive, and Melissa is more of a modern kind of a retro look. She's got the pirate or bandana on her head, and she looks beautiful. She looks gorgeous. Monotone with the makeup. It's beautiful. It's elegant. And then we have Joe. He's got his bow tie and vest. So the party's going along well. Teresa and Louie are not there yet. Next thing you know, Danielle is talking to Jennifer Aiden, and she tells Jennifer that she's going to tell Melissa everything that Jennifer told her, having to do with Melissa being in a car with some guy. This is the rumor, okay? This is not a fact. This is the rumor that's going around. We don't know exactly who started it, who decided to keep it going. It's more behind the scenes, but this is what Danielle says to Jennifer, and Jennifer, kind of half-heartedly tells her not to do it. And then Danielle says, I feel it's the right thing to do. Then finally, Teresa and Louie arrive. Everyone's already there. Everyone's been mingling. Louie comes in. He gives all the guys like a hug, a pat on the shoulder, and he is obviously avoiding Joe Gorga. And Joe notices this. He doesn't appreciate it, and it causes some more tension. You have to remember, this is 3 days until the wedding. So this party is happening. Teresa and Louie are going to be married in 3 days. It is very obvious and awkward when Louie says hello to Paul and to Dolores and then Paul. And we have Joe standing right beside Paul. And Louie just goes right by Joe. He doesn't shake his hand. He does just nothing from what I can see, because we see kind of the side of his face. And he doesn't give him a hug. He doesn't shake his hand. And he just goes off and turns back over and kisses Dolores. We see Joe Gorga's face, and he's kind of there with his jaw dropped. Just his eyes like a stare, like a blank stare, just wondering, he didn't even say hi. He just keeps ignoring Joe. And Joe is not really he's not freaking out. He says he knows exactly what he's doing, and he doesn't respect that. Teresa does greet, and give the kiss to Melissa. She's got her hand on Melissa's shoulder. She says hello. They both say hi. Everything seems okay. And then she says hello to Danielle, and everything seems fine. Then Louie starts to complain. Him and Teresa are there together with Jennifer and Bill, and Louie is saying that he would expect more from a blood brother. Teresa says she's fine with it. She's happy. She talks about their love bubble, and she just wants to just let it go. We actually don't see too much of Dolores and Paul in this party. It's their party, but we don't see too much of them. But we see a lot of Danielle. We see some of Jennifer, and of course Teresa and Louie. They have arrived late, but they are basically the core of this episode is what happens between them. And so finally Danielle goes over and she tells Melissa that Laura has been saying that Margaret's friend caught you in the back seat of a car kissing a guy. And he went back and told Margaret, and then Margaret told Laura. And so this is the source. This is basically the way that the rumor, whether it's a rumor, I'm not sure, but this is the whole thing. All right. And it is a thing, definitely. Then we have Melissa, and she is not surprised, but instead she sets Danielle straight. Melissa tells Danielle that she already heard this story, and she says, you want to know how? I heard this from my husband. Now, Melissa, she says that Joe's sister, Teresa, is the one that called Joe to tell this story. But then we find out that Louie says that actually he's the one that called Joe. So Joe does go over, and Melissa is not there. Melissa's left out of it. They want to tell Joe about it, but not, I guess, for whatever reason, they don't call Melissa over. It's more so of a warning to try and get Joe to, I guess, maybe see the light about Melissa. Melissa is pretty furious at this point, of course, and what she says, she calls the whole thing a baseless rumor. This is what she's saying. It's a baseless rumor. And as far as Teresa, she is now enemy number one, trying to destroy her marriage. And it's more so that Teresa wants to have the two of them either maybe get divorced or just leave each other, not that she's trying to help the situation. So let me know in the comments what you think of this. What is your take on it? Did Louie and Teresa make a big mistake telling Joe about this? Had he heard it before? And then was this something which it seems it's the possibility is there that somebody is either stirring the pot, trying to perpetuate this whole thing in order for something to just pop off between Joe and Melissa, to cause a problem which is not there. Either this is a true story, or that this is something which is being blown out of proportion, or that it's totally baseless. It's a lie, that it never did happen. So let me know in the comments what you think. Who is it that is either lying, and is this truthful? Is it a whole big story made up in order to destroy Joe and Melissa? And what is it that Louie has? What is Louie trying to do? Why is Louie calling Joe over to the house? And now we have Melissa blaming Teresa for this, as opposed to blaming Laura and Margaret, because supposedly it is Margaret and Laura who pretty much started the story. And so what happens next, there is a confrontation between Melissa and Teresa and Joe and Louie. Now, of course, Joe Gorga, he kind of gets physical. He wants to charge, and they're holding him back. Melissa and Teresa have a slight confrontation. Teresa tells her just to get off of me, leave me alone. They don't actually, touch or anything like that, as from what I can see in the footage. But Teresa leaves. She goes downstairs, and then Louie is also brought downstairs as well. He goes down, and they're taking it very bad. Louie is trying to say that he's the one that called, but Joe and Melissa are more so fighting with Louie. And so he ends up going downstairs and meeting up with Teresa. And then Teresa says that once again, she's being blamed when she really wants nothing to do with this. And when she didn't start this rumor, she was keeping quiet, and she says she did this in private. She called her brother in private. She did not do it on the camera. And so she's more so saying that she's made out to be the bad guy when she didn't start the rumor. Then we hear Melissa saying that she had actually wanted to let this whole thing go for 6 months, even though she knew, because she wanted Teresa to have a peaceful wedding. There was that tension in the last few episodes that we'd seen in the last 6 months between them. Obviously, there was a lot of anger that we saw between Joe and Louie, and supposedly this is the reason for that. But now that Danielle has brought this to Melissa, on camera, on an episode, she says she's got to face it. And so everything just kind of goes off. The two are in complete odds. So Melissa is forced to, stand her ground. And of course, then Joe, his rage, like always, he can't handle it. He gets angry. And of course, what is worse than having your wife accused of cheating while you're at a party? And they're saying that it was more than one, that it was multiple, that she's been cheating with many men. And so this is a huge insult to his ego as a man, as, as a provider, as a good husband, as whatever. This is a huge insult to him. He's there with the guy friends, and he is being told or hearing that this whole thing happened. And so this happens, like I said, it is 3 days until Teresa's wedding. The next thing we find out, the decision has been made. Dolores is talking to Melissa, and Melissa tells her over the phone, no, we are not going to be going to the wedding. And she feels that she's doing Teresa a favor because it would only distract from the happiness of the day, to have that whole, the tension there with her, with Joe, and the possibility that something else would start at the wedding. So now Danielle has put herself there in the front, and she's in the center of this. But in the background, the reality is that this whole thing started with Laura and Margaret. Melissa's day has been destroyed. She's been dealing with this for months, but luckily, Joe just doesn't believe any of this. He just doesn't believe it. And so they have just been staying quiet. And the two of them have been together now for 18 years. And it seems that they're going to be sticking together. Now, supposedly, according to Teresa, she says that it was Louie that wanted to help out Joe Gorga. He wanted Joe to get out in front of all this. in order to be helpful so that Joe wouldn't be surprised. He wanted to be helpful, is what Teresa, basically, that's her side of it. And they see this as being helpful. But what somehow it gets turned around. Melissa's saying that they were trying to destroy her marriage. And so it's kind of a contrast here. There's some contradiction. I don't know which is the truth, but this is what is happening. And so it's a big explosion. It's a horrible incident that happens with this family. Are they going to be able to get back together? We have found out that now there might be a delay in filming, but they are having the wedding. So we're going to be seeing Teresa's wedding, and we won't see, I suppose we're not going to see Joe and Melissa there, but possibly they might be, let's say, in the background, or we might see them at home or whatever. Possibly, I have no idea. But I suppose there will be a delay. And is that because somebody's going to be leaving the show? Is it possible that this is the end for Melissa and Joe on The Real Housewives? Could this be that there is no going back? Or is this going to be more fuel for the fire? Let me know what you think. Please leave your comments down below and we can discuss more about this. What's going to happen? I don't know. Is it going to be the end for some of our favorite characters on The Real Housewives of New Jersey? Or will it be a continuation from this last episode? Thank you so much for joining me today. Stay safe and have a blessed week. Bye for now.